Good morning, students. Today we are going to take class on this is the fourth topic of chemotherapy, that is beta-lactam antibiotics. It includes penicillin, cephalosporins and monobactams. So today in my class I will tell about penicillin, and next class we will deal with other beta-lactam antibiotics. So coming to the contents, there will be introduction, mechanism of action of penicillins, and the individual drug will know its action, uses and adverse effect. So first coming to the introduction, what are the antibiotics? These are the substances which is produced by microorganisms which selectively suppress the growth of or kill other microorganisms at low concentration. So the beta-lactam antibiotics includes penicillin, cephalosporins, others include monobactam and carbapenems. Okay, so beta-lactam antibiotics include penicillin, cephalosporins, and the other two are monobactam and carbapenems. So today in my class we'll talk about penicillin. So what is the history of penicillin? First, the penicillin, it was discovered by Alexander Fleming in 1928. He found that Staphylococcus culture plate growth was inhibited due to the growth of Penicillium notatum, or it is called as Penicillium chrysogenum. Okay. So this is the growth of that bacteria, that is Staphylococcus aureus, and he found that the Staphylococcus aureus culture plate growth was inhibited because of this antibiotic, that is penicillium, that is chrysogenum, and other is Penicillium notatum. So coming to the structure of penicillin. Structure of penicillin, you can see penicillin is formed of, see, this is A ring, this is a B ring. Okay, the A ring is called as thiazolidine ring. Thiazolidine ring, and it is having a sulfur atom. The B ring is called as beta-lactam ring, which is having at the position 6, that is RCONH group. RCONH group is present at the 6th position, and this is the B ring, which is called as beta-lactam ring, and it is fused with a thiazolidine ring, that is a ring, which is having the sulfur atom at position 1. So this is the structure of penicillin. What is the source of penicillin? It was originally obtained from the fungus Penicillium notatum, but at present the high-yielding source is another fungus, that is Penicillium chrysogenum. So the most at present the high-yielding source of the penicillin is this fungus, that is Penicillium chrysogenum. Okay, it contains a large amount of fungal amidases enzyme, and that will hydrolyze the penicillin at position 6. Okay, the fungus, that is Penicillium chrysogenum, contain large amount of fungal amidases, and they hydrolyze the penicillin at position 6. The natural penicillin is otherwise called as penicillin G. In this, the R in the side chain group is benzyl group, that is CH2, C6 and H5. But in semi-synthetic penicillins, this R group is anything other than the benzyl group, that is procaine penicillin G and benzathine penicillin G. Okay. So in natural penicillin, the R group, there will be an benzyl group. Okay, here there will be a benzyl group in natural penicillin, whereas in semi-synthetic penicillins, other than the benzyl group, there will be the other substitute. So that is procaine penicillin G and benzathine penicillin G, they are the semi-synthetic penicillins. Now coming to the beta-lactam ring of the penicillin can be degraded by beta-lactamase enzyme, which is produced by the invading bacteria. Okay, see, as I told you, this is a beta-lactam ring, and this is they are fused with thiazolidine ring, which is having a sulfur atom. So this beta-lactam ring will be getting degraded by which enzyme? That is beta-lactamase enzyme. Okay, beta-lactamase enzyme. This is the enzyme which is formed by the invading bacteria. The bacteria will produce this enzyme, that is beta-lactamase enzyme, and they will degrade the beta-lactam ring of penicillin. So after degradation, the beta-lactam ring will be break, and there will be break of beta-lactam ring, and the resulting product is called as penicilloic acid. Penicilloic acid, which is inactive. Okay, this is inactive. That is, it does not have any antibacterial activity like penicillin. It is an inactive. So what is the role of this? It combines with the host proteins and they act as an antigenic determinant of penicillin-induced hypersensitivity reactions. As we all know, some persons they will have penicillin allergic, that is they develop the hypersensitivity reaction, and that is because of this inactive product, that is penicilloic acid. So remember the structure of penicillin, there is a beta-lactam ring, and this beta-lactam ring will be getting degraded by the beta-lactamase enzyme, which is produced by the invading bacteria. And after there is a break of beta-lactam ring, the resultant product is penicilloic acid, which is nothing but the inactive. Okay, why it is inactive? Because this does not have any antibacterial property like penicillin. So what is the role of this? It acts as a major antigenic determinant of penicillin-induced to allergic reactions or penicillin-induced hypersensitivity reaction. Then next comes the mechanism of the action. What is the mechanism of the action? Before going there, you should remember this is the inactive product of this penicillin. There is also an active product, that is the 6-amino penicillinic acid. Okay, 6-amino penicillinic acid, and this is formed because of the fungal amidase enzyme at position 6. At position 6, there is a group, that is RCONH group, that gets degraded by the fungal amidase, and they form a 6-amino penicillinic acid, and this is the active moiety of the drug penicillin, and this is the inactive product. Okay, penicilloic acid is an inactive product. It does not have any bacterial property, and this is formed by the beta-lactamase enzyme, which is produced by the invading bacteria. But the main active product is 6-amino penicillinic acid, which is formed by the fungal amidase. Then coming to the mechanism of action of penicillin, remember majority of the bacteria, they are surrounded by the thick cell wall. Okay, that confers rigidity and stability to the cell structure. The cell wall is composed of peptidoglycan, which is why it is called peptidoglycan. They have parallel glycan polysaccharides, and they are cross-linked by the peptide chains. That's why they are called as peptidoglycan. So every bacteria will be surrounded by a thick cell wall, and that provides the stability to the cell structures. And that cell wall will have composition, that is peptidoglycan. Remember, the name peptidoglycan means it consists of parallel glycan polysaccharides, and they are cross-linked by the peptide chains. That's why they are called as peptidoglycan. So what is the role of this peptidoglycan? It does not allow the bacteria to swell, and thus it prevents its death due to lysis. So the process of cross-bridging is called as transpeptidation reaction, and they are catalyzed by certain proteins, that is called as penicillin binding proteins, PBPS. Okay, penicillin binding proteins, which are the transmembrane surface enzymes present in the bacteria. See, before going to that, see, this is the structure of peptidoglycan. I told you the bacterial cell wall is composed of peptidoglycan. So what is the structure of peptidoglycan? The peptidoglycan is composed of two amino sugars, that is N-acetyl muramic acid and N-acetyl glucosamine. Okay, it composed of two amino sugars, that is N-acetyl muramic acid and N-acetyl glucosamine, and they are having the pentapeptide chain. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pentapeptide chain, which is linked to N-acetyl muramic acid. And then what happens? There are three penicillin binding proteins, that is penicillin binding protein 1, that is called as transpeptidation. Okay, transpeptidation reaction, it causes transpeptidation. What does it means? It means it removes this. Okay, it removes the terminal D-alanine side chain. It removes the terminal D-alanine side chain, and then the remaining D-alanine, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, the remaining D-alanine goes and binds to the L-lysine of the other peptide chain. How does it bind? Through pentaglycine chain, it's a cross bridge. Okay, through pentaglycine chain, that is glycine 5. So this is a pentaglycine chain. Okay, understood? These are the two pentapeptide chains, and these pentapeptide chains is composed of two amino sugars, that is N-acetyl muramic acid and N-acetyl glucosamine. And then these two peptide chains will be linked to each other by the pentaglycine chain. Okay. So the first protein, that is penicillin binding protein 1, it causes transpeptidation, which means it removes the terminal D-alanine chain and cross-links the remaining D-alanine with L-lysine of the other or adjacent peptide chain through pentaglycine bond. Okay, through pentaglycine bond. In that way, there is a cross bridge between these two pentapeptide chain. And then there comes another penicillin binding protein 2, that is called as carboxypeptidation. Okay, it causes carboxypeptidation reaction. So what does it mean? It means whatever this other D-alanine side chain was there, it causes hydroxylation of D-alanine side chain. Okay, it causes hydroxylation of D-alanine side chain. So that is a role of penicillin binding protein 2. There is another penicillin binding protein, that is 3, which is a carboxypeptidase. It splits cross-linking formed in the septum formation during cell division. Okay. So remember, the mechanism of action of penicillin is it interferes with the synthesis of bacterial cell wall. How it interferes with the synthesis of bacterial cell wall? It competes for and inhibits the penicillin binding protein catalyzed process of transpeptidation. So which I already told you, the transpeptidation process is this. Okay. Penicillin binding protein 1 causes transpeptidation, that is removing the D-alanine chain and cross-linking the remaining D-alanine with L-lysine through pentaglycine side chain. So penicillin is blocked, this step is blocked by penicillin. So penicillin will block the penicillin binding protein 1 catalyzed transpeptidation. As a result, there will be formation of imperfect cell wall. The cell wall which is formed is not perfect. So what happens? There will be osmotic drive of fluid from outside environment to inside bacteria. So once it goes to the inside bacteria, the fluid, the bacteria gets swelled. Okay, there will be swelling of the bacteria and they burst and die. In that way, penicillin kills the bacteria. Okay, how it kills? It competes and it inhibits penicillin binding protein 1 catalyzed to transpeptidation process. As a result, there will be imperfect bacterial cell wall formation, and because of this imperfect cell wall, the osmotic drive of fluid occurs from outside of the environment to the inside of bacteria, and bacteria gets swell and burst to die. So main is it inhibits the transpeptidases which constitute penicillin binding proteins. So penicillin binding protein 1 is a major transpeptidase which is involved in peptidoglycan synthesis during elongation process. It cleaves, that is, it breaks the terminal D-alanine and connects the remaining terminal D-alanine to L-lysine of the adjacent peptidoglycan bridge. Its inhibition by penicillin causes imperfect cell wall synthesis and lysis of bacteria. The penicillin binding 2 is called as carboxypeptidase. It hydrolyzes the terminal D-alanine residue present on the adjacent pentapeptide chain to promote the further cross-linking at that site. So penicillin causes inhibition of this process, and there will be formation of the spherical cell instead of the normal rod-shaped bacilli. Okay, usually the bacilli are in the form of normal shape is rod-shaped. So after this process gets inhibited by penicillin, there will be formation of the spherical cells. Then penicillin binding protein 3 is a carboxypeptidase. It splits cross-linking involved in the septum formation during cell division process. Now coming to the antibacterial spectrum of penicillin. Okay, penicillin is a bactericidal drug, not bacteriostatic. Okay, it kills and lyses the bacteria mostly at the multiplying phase of the cell cycle, and it is called as bactericidal activity, and mostly the bactericidal activity is greater against the gram positive compared to the gram negative bacteria. Why it is more towards the gram positive compared to gram negative? Because see, this is the structure and composition of the cell wall in gram positive. A is gram positive, B is gram negative. So what happens in gram positive? There is a peptidoglycan. Okay, there is a peptidoglycan layer. So there is only one layer in this. Whereas in gram negative, you see it is having one more layer above the peptidoglycan, which is the outer membrane having lipopolysaccharides. So here there is no outer membrane. It is only having peptidoglycan. So here is the presence of penicillin binding proteins, that is PBP, and this is a peptidoglycan layer. So what happens when you take the drug? The penicillin will easily pass through this peptidoglycan layer, and they go and bind to this penicillin binding protein, and they inhibit the penicillin binding protein catalyzed to transpeptidation process, and there will be formation of imperfect bacterial cell wall and the bacteria dies. Whereas in gram negative bacteria, there is an outer membrane which is made of lipopolysaccharides, and there is a narrow porine channel. Okay, in this narrow porine channel, the penicillin cannot enter. Penicillin cannot enter this gram negative bacteria. Okay, whereas here there is no lipopolysaccharide, no porine channel, so easily penicillin can enter this peptidoglycan layer, and they can easily bind to this penicillin binding proteins. But in gram negative bacteria, because there is a presence of the outer membrane, that is lipopolysaccharide, and the narrow porine channel is there is a difficulty for the penicillin to enter the gram negative bacteria. But of course, there are some exceptions like ampicillin, amoxicillin. They are the hydrophilic compounds. Okay, they are hydrophilic, so they can easily enter this porine channel, and they can act against the gram negative bacteria. That is ampicillin and amoxicillin. All penicillins will not act against gram negative. Okay, there are some exceptions. I'll tell you in my next slide. Right now, remember ampicillin, amoxicillin. They are the hydrophilic compounds, so they can easily enter this porine channel, and they act on these penicillin binding proteins. Whereas gram negative bacteria like Pseudomonas, If it is a gram bacteria, negative bacteria, suppose Pseudomonas, penicillin can never enter Pseudomonas. Why? Because the Pseudomonas bacteria does not have this poring channel at all. So there is no poring channel, only lipopolysaccharide. So because there is no poring channel in the Pseudomonas bacteria, so there is no passage for the penicillin to enter. Now come to the classification. The classification of penicillin is divided into two, that is narrow spectrum and extended spectrum. The narrow spectrum penicillin, why it is called narrow? Because it does not act under all the bacteria. They have more active against to gram-positive bacteria, that includes gram-positive cocci and gram-positive bacilli, and to spirochetes. Moderately active against the gram-negative. That can be gram-negative cocci and gram-negative bacilli. That's why it is called as narrow spectrum. Okay. So it is further divided into beta-lactamase sensitive and beta-lactamase resistant. Beta-lactamase, as I already told in my first slide, it is an enzyme which is produced by the infecting bacteria, and they cause degradation of the beta-lactam ring, which is present in the penicillin structure. Okay, so the narrow spectrum can be divided into natural penicillins, which are nothing but beta-lactamase sensitive. So they are sensitive to this beta-lactamase enzyme, which is produced by the invading bacteria. Beta-lactamase resistant group, that is called anti-staphylococcal penicillins. That is, these all penicillins, they are effective against the staphylococcus organisms, and they are resistant to the beta-lactamase enzyme. So this is further subdivided into acid stable, acid labile. So acid stable means they can these drugs can be given orally because they will not get degraded by the gastric acid. Whereas the acid labile group, that is benzyl penicillin G, procaine penicillin G, benzathine penicillin G, these all three cannot be given by the oral because they are not acid stable, they are acid labile, means they will get easily degraded by the gastric acid. So what is the other route you can give these drugs is by intramuscular or intravenous route. And remember, procaine penicillin G and benzathine penicillin G is available in the form of depot injection. Depot injection, you might be already knowing, we have read in our general pharmacology, it is a type of the is a type of route of drug administration. Depot means when you give any drug through this route, there will be sustained release of the drug. Slowly the drug will be released. So this is one of the mechanism of prolonging the duration of action of the drug. So these two preparations of penicillin, they are available in the intramuscular depot form. Okay, so beta-lactamase sensitive group, which are otherwise called as natural penicillins, and they are further subdivided into acid stable, acid labile. Acid stable, you have penicillin 5, that is phenoxymethylpenicillin, which can be given by oral route. Then acid labile group, you will have benzyl penicillin G, procaine penicillin G, and benzathine penicillin G, which can be given by intramuscular or intravenous route. And the two preparations, that is the last two, that is procaine penicillin G and benzathine penicillin G, they are available in the form of intramuscular depot injection. Then beta-lactamase resistant, that is the anti-staphylococcus penicillin. These all penicillins are effective against staphylococcus organisms. So they are called as anti-staphylococcus, and they cannot be degraded by the beta-lactamase enzyme. So this is also again further subdivided into acid stable, acid labile. So acid stable, again same. This can be given orally, because they will not get degraded by the gastric acid. So that includes cloxacillin, dicloxacillin, flucloxacillin. Okay, cloxacillin is a common, cloxacillin, dicloxacillin, flucloxacillin. All the drugs can be given either by oral route or by intramuscular route. Then acid labile, these drugs cannot be given orally because they get digested by the gastric acid. So the other routes we can prefer in these two drugs is IM or IV. So that includes methicillin and napsilin. Okay, methicillin and napsilin. So remember the classification is very important. It is a narrow spectrum group. Why it is called narrow? Because they are effective only against gram-positive bacteria, that includes your gram-positive cocci, gram-positive bacilli, and spirochetes. Okay, and they are not effective against the gram-negative group, that can be your cocci or bacilli. That's why it is called as narrow spectrum. And they are divided into two groups, that is beta-lactam is sensitive, beta-lactam is resistant. The sensitive group is called as natural penicillins, and they are again further subdivided into acid stable group and acid labile group. Acid stable group, these drugs can be given orally because it does not get digested by the gastric enzymes or gastric acid. So that includes penicillin 5 or phenoxymethylpenicillin, which can be given oral. Acid labile group cannot be given orally because they get too easily digested or degraded by your gastric acid. So we have to prefer the other routes, that can be intramuscular and IV route. And it includes benzyl penicillin G, procaine penicillin G, and benzathine penicillin G. Out of that, the depot preparations is for this available for these two preparations, that is procaine penicillin G and benzathine penicillin G. Coming to beta-lactam is resistant, they are called as anti-staphylococcus penicillin, that is they are effective against staphylococcus organisms, and they are again further subdivided into acid stable, acid labile. Acid stable, it includes cloxacillin, dicloxacillin, flucloxacillin. Remember, all are having cloxacillin as a suffix. So these drugs can be given oral or IM. Acid labile group again cannot be given by oral, and they are mostly given by intramuscular or IV. It includes methicillin and napsilin. Now come to extended spectrum penicillin. Why it is called extended? Because unlike the narrow spectrum penicillins, these are effective against gram-positive and also gram-negative cocci, bacilli, and also they are effective against some are effective against anaerobic organism as well. So they are called as extended spectrum penicillin. And this group of penicillins all are sensitive to beta-lactamase degradation. Okay, they are all sensitive to beta-lactamase degradation. So that includes again same acid stable, acid labile. Acid stable is called as aminopenicillin group, which includes ampicillin, bicamcillin, talamcillin, amoxicillin. Okay, ampicillin, again you see here ampicillin is common. Okay, ampicillin, bacampicillin, then talampicillin and amoxicillin. So all these drugs can be given oral or parenteral. Because they are acid stable, you can give them oral as well. So ampicillin, bicamcillin, talampicillin and amoxicillin. Okay. Coming to acid labile group, these are called as anti-pseudonormal penicillin because they act against the gram-negative organism, that is pseudomonas. So that includes carbanicillin, ticarcillin, piperacillin, magloxicillin and azloxicillin. In this carbanicillin and ticarcillin, they are called as carboxypenicillin, and there are last three, that is piperacillin, magloxicillin and azloxicillin. These are the three drugs which goes under iridopenicillin group. Okay, these two carbanicillin and ticarcillin are called as carboxypenicillin. Piperacillin, magloxicillin, azloxicillin, they are the iridopenicillin group, and they are the acid labile group, that is they can be given only parenteral, not oral, and they are called as anti-pseudonormal penicillin because these drugs act against the pseudomonas, and all are sensitive to beta-lactamase degradation. Okay, now come to the first group, that is natural penicillin group, which includes your phenoxymethylpenicillin or penicillin 5. So it is a narrow spectrum. Why narrow? As I already told, it acts against gram-positive cocci, bacilli and spirochetes. So example, you can mention few gram-positive cocci. You have been already taught in your microbiology. That includes Streptococcus pyogenes, Streptococcus pneumonia, Streptococcus viridans, and then gram-positive, these are the gram-positive cocci. Gram-positive bacilli includes Clostridium tetani, Clostridium perfringens, Corynebacterium diphtheria, and Bacillus anthracis. So, what is the use? A single dose of 600,000 unit IM dose of broken penicillin G is most effective clinically for about 12 to 24 hours. Or benzathine penicillin also can be given, that is single IM dose of 1.2 million units. They mostly act effective against the beta hemolytic streptococcus for about 3 weeks. Now coming to the pharmacokinetics group, the acid label group. Okay, the acid label group, only 1/3 dose is absorbed. Sodium penicillin G is given intramuscular. If you give intramuscular, there will be rapid and complete absorption. Okay, because this is acid label, it gets destroyed by the gastric acid, so only 1/3 will be absorbed. If you give intramuscular, there will be rapid and complete absorption. The peak plasma level, it reached about 30 minutes. Distribution, remember, it distributes among the all body fluids except eyes, postrate, and CNS. Okay, it gets distributed along the all body fluids except it does not reach your eyes, postrate gland, and CNS. It does not cross the cerebrospinal fluid. Okay, it does not go to that. So, but when you have inflammation of the meninges, okay, suppose a patient got meningitis or inflammation of the meninges, then the penicillin have got permeability to reach the brain. Okay, in meningitis present, because of inflammation, the penicillin can have permeable to the reach the brain. Then plasma protein bound is about 60%. Metabolism, it undergoes very little metabolism, and excretion is through kidney. So the narrow spectrum beta lactamase sensitive group, which includes your penicillin 5 and penicillin G, their effective agonists I already told, that is gram-positive cocci, gram-positive bacilli, and equally effective agonist your spirochetes. Moderately effective agonist the gram-negative cocci, that includes your Neisseria meningococci and Neisseria gonorrhea, and negligible agonist the gram-negative bacilli and bacteroides. Okay, not at all active agonist gram-negative bacilli and bacteroides. So you have to remember the narrow spectrum penicillin group will be effective against the gram-positive cocci and gram-positive bacilli and spirochetes. Moderate effective against the gram-negative cocci, and negligible activity will be there against the gram-negative bacilli and other anaerobic organisms, that is bacteroids. So gram-positive, you can mention few gram-positive cocci, that is Streptococcus pyogenes, Streptococcus pneumonia, and Streptococcus viridans. Gram-positive bacilli includes your Clostridium tetani, Clostridium perfringens, Corynebacterium diphtheria, and Bacillus anthracis. So based on this organism, you can write the uses. It is effective against the beta hemolytic streptococci, and also it is effective against endocarditis, which is caused by the Streptococcus viridans, and effective against the tetanus, which is caused by the Clostridium tetani, and it is effective against diphtheria infections and whooping cough, which is caused by the Clostridium perfringens. So based on the organism, you can write the respective disease name. And then it is mostly effective against Trypanosoma pallidum, which is a spirochetes infection. So for all these two syphilis infection, you are giving the drug, that is benzathine penicillin G, 2.4 million units intramuscular once a week for about 2 to 3 weeks. Now the next group is narrow spectrum but beta lactamase resistant group. Okay, those were beta lactamase sensitive group, these drugs, which includes your penicillin 5, penicillin G, that is procaine penicillin G, benzathine penicillin G. This includes your narrow spectrum but beta lactamase resistant group, that includes cloxacillin, dicloxacillin, methicillin, nafcillin. So these are also same as your penicillin G. Okay, Same as penicillin G, that is they act against the gram-positive cocci, Streptococcus pneumonia, Streptococcus pyogenes, Streptococcus viridans, and but also they act against beta-lactamase producing Staphylococcus because they are the beta-lactamase resistant. So they can act against the beta-lactamase producing Staphylococcus. Whereas narrow spectrum beta-lactamase sensitive group will not act against Staphylococcus. They act only against Streptococcus. But this is beta-lactamase resistant group. They act against beta-lactamase producing Staphylococcus group. So they are called as anti-staphylococcal penicillins. In this group, methicillin is no longer used to because it causes nephrotoxicity. So the uses is, it is used for osteomyelitis, septicemia, endocarditis. All these are caused by Staphylococcus. Okay, osteomyelitis, septicemia, and endocarditis. Now come to extended spectrum. The extended spectrum penicillin group, which includes first ampicillin and amoxicillin, most important, they all are beta-lactamase sensitive. Okay, all are beta-lactamase sensitive. Then what are the pharmacokinetics in this group is, main pharmacokinetic property, amoxicillin and ampicillin, they both have good oral bioavailability. Okay, but the food will decrease the bioavailability of ampicillin only, not amoxicillin. As the food decreases the bioavailability of ampicillin, you have to give ampicillin either 1 hour before food or 1 hour after food. Then ampicillin achieves the therapeutic concentration in the CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, during your inflammatory condition. So whenever there is meningitis infection, you can give ampicillin. It will go and have and achieve its therapeutic concentration in CSF. Excretion is through kidney. The other drugs, that is becamcillin and talamcillin, they are the prodrugs of ampicillin. So remember, it is called extended spectrum. Why? Because they are effective against gram-negative bacilli as well. And then this ampicillin, amoxicillin, becamcillin, talamcillin, all these are called aminopenicillins. Okay, they have an amino group in their chemical structure. So it is called as aminopenicillins. It can be ampicillin, amoxicillin, becamcillin, talamcillin. So what is the difference between ampicillin and amoxicillin? You have to remember, it mostly they differ in their pharmacokinetic property. That is, this drug, ampicillin, food will interfere with the absorption of this drug. And so you have to give, as I told, 1 hour before food or after food. And excretion is mostly in the bile, primarily by the kidney, and it undergoes enterohepatic circulation. And the main side effect of ampicillin is diarrhea. Whereas amoxicillin, oral absorption is better. Food does not interfere with the absorption of amoxicillin. And diarrhea, the risk of diarrhea is less with amoxicillin compared to ampicillin. So remember, ampicillin, the pharmacokinetic property, even though it has good oral absorption, the food will become, food interface with the absorption. So we have to give 1 hour before or 1 hour after, and the excretion is mostly by the kidney and also through bile, and it undergoes enterohepatic circulation, and the main side effect of this ampicillin is diarrhea. Whereas amoxicillin, the oral absorption is better compared to compared to ampicillin, and food does not interfere with the absorption of amoxicillin, and the risk of diarrhea is less. Okay, the other group which can be given only parenteral, that is carbanicillin, ticarcillin, piperacillin, magilocillin, and azilocillin. So these are the drugs which can be given by the parenteral route only. Okay, they are also the extended spectrum penicillin, but only difference is that it is given parenteral because they are the acid liable group. And also already told, carbanicillin and ticarcillin are the carboxypenicillin, and piperacillin, magilocillin, azilocillin are the uridopenicillin group. And remember, these are the penicillins which are called as anti-pseudomonas penicillins because they act against the Pseudomonas aeruginosa organisms. So the parenteral penicillin, which is available as a sodium salt, and this also has low concentration in CSF, it undergoes renal elimination. So antimicrobial spectrum, it retains the antimicrobial spectrum of penicillin G. Ampicillin group of antibiotics, because of their hydrophilic character, they enhance the ability to penetrate through the porin channels of gram-negative. I already showed you the gram-negative has got the porin channels. So through this porin channel, ampicillin group can enter because they are the hydrophilic in nature. Okay, they are the water-soluble compounds. Water-soluble, hydrophilic, so they can easily pass through the porin channels of the gram-negative. But it acts against the gram-negative bacteria, but not against the Pseudomonas. Why? Because the Pseudomonas organism does not have this porin channel. So the ampicillin group of antibiotics cannot act against the Pseudomonas. So gram-negative bacilli mostly it acts, that is Bordetella protease, which causes whooping cough, H. influenza, which causes pneumonia, otitis media, sinusitis, E. coli, which causes UTI, Shigella, Salmonella typhi, which causes typhoid fever. So these are the few organisms and their diseases to which the ampicillin will act. Amoxicillin, apart from all this, it also acts as a multi-drug regimen for the H. pylori infections, that is H. pylori induced peptic ulcer disease. So remember the ampicillin group, that is ampicillin, amoxicillin, bicamcillin and telamcillin, they are extended spectrum, that is they act both against gram positive and gram negative but not against the Pseudomonas. And why they act against gram negative? Because they are the hydrophilic compounds, they can easily pass through the porin channels which is present in the cell membrane of gram negative bacteria. But because the porin channels are not present in Pseudomonas, this group of antibiotics does not act against Pseudomonas. So amoxicillin, ampicillin, they again act against the gram-positive cocci, that is Streptococcus viridans, Enterococci, Pneumococci, but not against Staphylococcus. Okay, the Staphylococcus, anti-staphylococcal penicillin includes only that group, that is cloxacillin, dicloxacillin, flucloxacillin, methicillin, napcillin. So these are the anti-staphylococcal penicillin. Ampicillin, amoxicillin will never act against staphylococcus. So for gonococcal urethritis, mostly we are using single dose of 3.5 gram of ampicillin plus 1 gram of probenicid. Next comes the piperacillin group of penicillins. Okay, they act against the gram positive, gram negative, and also against the Pseudomonas organism. So they are called as anti-pseudomomal penicillins. And uses is same. It acts against serious infection which is caused due to Pseudomonas, Klebsiella, and protease. And also it will act against the burns, septicemia, and urinary tract infection caused by these protease organisms. So remember, these are the anti-pseudomomal penicillins, okay, which includes your carbanicillin, ticarcillin, and then uridopenicillin groups, piperacillin, magillocillin. Now comes to resistance to penicillin. Some bacteria will have resistance to penicillin. Why? Resistance to penicillin occurs by 4 mechanisms. One is inactivation of the beta-lactam ring by the beta-lactamase enzyme. Some bacteria produces beta-lactamase enzyme like E. coli, H. influenza, Streptococcus. These are the some bacteria which produce beta-lactamase enzyme. So they degraded the beta-lactam ring and they causes inactivation of this beta-lactam ring. And penicillin cannot act on the beta-lactam ring. Okay. Then modification of the penicillin binding proteins. So as we know, penicillin causes imperfect bacterial cell wall synthesis. How? By binding to the penicillin binding protein. But some bacteria, there will be modification of this penicillin binding protein and that has low affinity for the penicillin to bind. In that way, penicillin cannot act. and those bacteria shows resistance to penicillin. Okay, because there is some modified penicillin binding protein that has got low affinity towards the penicillin. Then third mechanism is reduction of penicillin permeability to reach the penicillin binding proteins. Okay, there are some mutant pseudomonas organisms. So they will have, there are some mutant organisms. Because of that, the porin channels which has to be open for the penicillin to act, the porin channel will be closed. Because of that, the permeability to penicillin will be reduced. As a result, the penicillin binding proteins cannot have access to penicillin. Then activation of antibiotic efflux mechanism. Okay, some bacteria, they have the efflux transporters. So they efflux the penicillin before reaching the penicillin binding protein. They efflux the penicillin, that is, they move the penicillin out from their outer membrane. So these are the 4 mechanisms of resistance to penicillin. One is inactivation of the beta-lactam ring by beta-lactamase enzyme, then modification of the penicillin binding protein, then reduction of the penicillin permeability to reach the penicillin binding protein, then activation of the antibiotic efflux mechanism. So there are some beta-lactamase inhibitors. Okay, the beta-lactamase enzyme is nothing but it is formed by the invading bacteria that opens the beta-lactam ring and inactivates the penicillin. So the beta-lactamase enzyme, they resemble the beta-lactam antibiotics only structurally they will be similar. They do not have any significant antimicrobial action. Okay, only the structure of beta-lactam will be same as the beta-lactamase enzyme. So what does this enzyme do? They bind irreversible to the catalytic site of the beta-lactamase enzyme, which is produced by the bacteria, and they prevent the hydrolysis of penicillin. So they are called as suicide inhibitor. Okay, they are called as suicide inhibitors. See, this beta-lactamase enzyme is synthesized by the invading bacteria. So this enzyme, when it was synthesized by the bacteria, they go and bind to the catalytic site of this enzyme and they prevent the hydrolysis of penicillin. They also inhibit the plasmid-mediated beta-lactamase, which are responsible for the drug resistance. That is MRSA, methicillin resistant Staphylococcus, H. influenza, Salmonella, Shigella. So they also inhibit the plasmid-mediated beta-lactamase enzyme. So what are the beta-lactamase inhibitors? It includes clavulanic acid, sulbactam, tazobactam. Okay, there are 3 beta-lactamase inhibitors which are available. That is clavulanic acid, sulbactam, and tazobactam. So these are the 3 drugs which are the beta-lactamase inhibitors. So they go and bind to the beta-lactamase enzyme, which is synthesized by the bacteria, and they inhibit this enzyme. In that way, they prevent the hydrolysis of penicillin. So clavulanic acid was the source is it was developed from Streptococcus clavigerus. Okay, this is fungus. And sulbactam, which is semi-synthetic derivative of clavulanic acid, and tazobactam is nothing but the structural analog of sulbactam. So out of these 3 drugs, only this drug can be given orally. Other 2 drugs you have to give parenterally, either by IV or by IM. So what happens? There are some fixed dose combinations you have to remember because they are according to their common pharmacokinetic features. The clavulanic acid is combined with amoxicillin, sulbactam is combined with ampicillin, tazobactam is combined with piperacillin. Okay, remember, you will be seeing in market, most commonly clavulanic acid comes in combination with amoxicillin. Sulbactam is combined with ampicillin. Tazobactam is combined with piperacillin. So these are the fixed dose combinations. So what is the advantage of this fixed dose combination? See, addition of clavulanic acid with amoxicillin, it will extend the antimicrobial spectrum of amoxicillin against beta-lactamase producing bacteria. Before amoxicillin, this is a drug which is sensitive to beta-lactamase degradation. If you remember the classification under sensitive to beta-lactamase, we have read this drug, that is amoxicillin, ampicillin. So when you combine this drug with a beta-lactamase inhibitor like carbonic acid, that time the beta-lactamase will not be getting inhibited, and it will extend the antimicrobial spectrum of amoxicillin against the beta-lactamase producing bacteria, that is Streptococcus pneumonia, H. influenza and Moraxella. So it is effective against otitis media and sinusitis, which is caused by Streptococcus pneumonia, H. influenza and Moraxella. The available dose combinations, you have to remember the dose combination. As I told you, carbonic acid is given orally. The other two drugs is given parenteral. So there is a fixed dose combination of amoxicillin with clavulanic acid. That is, amoxicillin comes either in 250 or 500 milligram, and clavulanic acid is 125 milligram tablets. Ampicillin is 1 gram. With sulbactam, you do half the dose, that is 0.5 gram IV or IM. Piperacillin is 2 gram with tazobactam, that is 0.25 gram IV or IM. Okay, so these are the fixed dose combination of amoxicillin, ampicillin and piperacillin, which are combined with the beta-lactamase inhibitors, that is clavulanic acid, sulbactam and tazobactam. And remember the doses. Dose is very important. Remember the dose of these drugs. Now come to adverse effect of penicillin. There is mostly hypersensitivity reactions to the penicillin. It can be immediate, accelerated or late. The immediate reaction occurs within 20 minutes of parenteral injection of penicillin, and this is mostly mediated by IgE antibodies. Okay, it is mostly mediated by IgE antibodies, and manifestation includes urticaria, pruritus, wheezing and sneezing. So if you don't treat this infection, 0.05% of case may land with anaphylactic shock, which includes severe hypersensitivity reactions, that is hypotension, laryngoedema. There will be laryngoedema, difficulty in breathing and respiratory arrest. So immediate reaction occurs within 20 minutes, and mostly it is mediated by IgE antibodies, and the symptoms will be urticaria, then pruritus, wheezing and sneezing. Management, you have to give adrenaline injection. You can give either subcutaneous or intramuscular. Steroids can be given, which decreases the inflammatory mediators which was released because of anaphylactic reaction. That can mostly hydrocortisone we are preferring, that is intravenous or intramuscular. Antihistamines to decrease the allergic manifestations, that is it is IgE mediated allergic. So you can give antihistamines. That is mostly we are giving the first generation, that is diphenhydramine intramuscular. And supportive measures can be given, oxygen inhalation, IV fluids and plasma expanders. Then escalated reaction occurs within 72 hours. And this is also mediated by IgE, and the clinical manifestation includes rashes, fever, urticaria. Rashes, fever, urticaria. And late hypersensitivity reactions occurs after 72 hours. And last, late is mediated both by IgE and IgM. And it includes erythematous reaction, lymphadenopathy and enlargement of spleen. The GIT side effects can be there, that is diarrhea, which is caused by ampicillin, and other miscellaneous side effects, methicillin, which I already told, it is not used because it causes nephrotoxicity. And high dose of carbonicillin also causes rise in your prothrombin time. And penicillin, when it is given for the syphilis patient, that it causes Jeris-Harrison reaction, which includes fever, myalgia and even respiratory collapse. And this happens because of sudden release of spirotical breakdown products. So these are the miscellaneous side effects of that is syphilitic patient taking treatment with penicillin can develop Jeris-Harrison reaction, which includes shivering, fever, myalgia, and even collapse. Thank you.